I don't know if you've looked ahead, but we've got a holiday coming this week. Are you ready? Everybody ready for that? You've got just a couple of days, Bill, to get ready. I want us to think this morning about your favorite holiday. Your favorite holiday. Is it Christmas? Is it Easter? Some of the kids might say it's Halloween. How many are on the bandwagon for Christmas? That's quite a few of you. What about Easter? Is it your favorite holiday? All right. Any Halloween people out there? Well, there's a few. What about Thanksgiving being your favorite? All right. If you chose Thanksgiving, you might be in luck. Because Henry Nouwen, beloved author, says that Thanksgiving that may be the purest holiday that we have. Because he says Christmas is distorted by a society that promotes consumerism. Even Easter is overshadowed by chocolate bunnies and new clothes. And it's been said that gratefulness is at the very heart of prayer. So to truly observe Thanksgiving is at the heart of God. And we cannot attain a state of gratitude by presenting God with a list of things that we should be grateful for, but by presenting ourselves and our desire to know God more closely. Man, I love Henry Nouwen. He's just got a way of saying things, right? He's saying that gratefulness is at the heart of our faith. We've got a chance this week to show God how grateful we are, how thankful we are. To show God, as Scott said in his prayer, to count our many blessings and to thank God for our many blessings. We've got an opportunity this week. But we've got a gospel story here before us that can teach us a thing or two. So let's look at it this morning. Luke 17, 11 through 19. It's got some great things to teach us this morning. Jesus is on a road trip between Samaria and Galilee. And as he goes into this village, there's 10 men that meet him. And they begin to cry out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." They don't want money. They don't want anything from Jesus except what? Pity. They want to be healed. So Jesus is looking at this group of 10 lepers, and this is an area of town. The village is an area that is combined of Jews and Samaritans. And the Jews and the Samaritans didn't get along with each other. Y'all got to understand that. The Jews felt like the Samaritans were almost like a half-blooded Jew, that they had kind of mixed the culture a little bit. They had intermarried with outside of the Jewish culture, and they didn't appreciate that. So they felt like the Jews and the Samaritans didn't get along. But in this leper colony, they did get along because there was a common bond. They all had leprosy. They all had this dreaded disease that was really, really painful. Several years ago, maybe 20 years ago, Scott and I had the opportunity to travel together on a conference mission trip to India. And we got to go to a leper colony. And we got to see people that had leprosy and people that had had limbs removed and eyes removed. And it was just the most horrific thing that you could ever imagine in your whole life. Leprosy is still a thing in our culture. It was in India. And in Jesus' time, it was a painful reality because the sores and the blemishes were very painful, but it was also something that kept you isolated from the rest of the people. If you had leprosy, you could not be among your family. You could not be in the temple in worship. You had to stay separate from everybody else. If you had leprosy, you couldn't be at your job. You had to ring a bell to warn people that you were coming down the street. I mean, this is how bad leprosy was. They were so desperate to be healed that they cried out to Jesus for mercy, not for money, but for healing. So Jesus looks at this group of 10 lepers. And usually with a healing, we see Jesus touching them or spitting on the ground, making mud and putting them on their eyes or something like that. We see Jesus doing something in their healing. But in this case, Luke tells us that he just says, go show yourselves to the priest. And it says that as they went, they were cleansed. As they went to show themselves to the priest, they were healed of this dreaded disease. Remarkable, right? It's a miracle. Jesus has healed them. Jesus has done what he said he was going to do. And it took all 10 of those lepers to understand that they were healed. It took all 10 of them to understand that they were going to the priest because only the priest could determine and judge that they were truly healed and could get back to their families, could get back to society, could get back to their jobs. Only the priest in Jerusalem could make that judgment. But when the 10 found out that they were healed, one of them decided to go back and thank Jesus. Luke says he threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And what does this passage say? And he was a Samaritan. Shocking, right? The one that remembered to go back was an outcast. Was the one that was hated. Was the one that was the rejected one. There was only one that remembered to go back. And Jesus looks and he says, weren't there 10 that were healed? Where are the other 9? But he says to this man, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. Man, I love this story. I love this story, and there's shocking elements to this story. I mean, if you were in Jerusalem or near Jerusalem and you had seen this story happen, you would be shocked in seeing what was going on, because one leper went back to thank Jesus, and he was the outcast. He was the one that nobody thought would make anything happen. And Jesus makes him the hero of the story. The other lepers, they did not come back. Maybe they got so excited about their healing that they went home to their families. Maybe they went back to their jobs. Maybe they just got so busy going back to their normal lives that they forgot all about giving thanks to the one who had healed them. But one scholar says maybe they were afraid of Jesus' power. Maybe they were afraid to be associated with Jesus. And that's why they didn't come back. 9 were healed. 10 were healed. 10 lepers were healed. And the 9 were not less cured, but they were definitely less grateful, weren't they? And finally, the shocking thing to me, as we've already said, Jesus makes the Samaritan the hero, the only one to come back, the only one to express thanks. And if you were a Jew standing there watching this, you would have been embarrassed. Because here is the outcast. Here is the one that is outside of the Jewish family. And Jesus is making him the hero of the story. Jesus is saying he is the only one that had true faith. And if you were a Jewish person, you'd been upset about that. But think about this story for a second. Where do you find yourself in this story? Maybe you would feel like the 9 lepers. Sometimes, I got to be honest, sometimes I forget to be thankful for what I have. I get caught up in the busyness and I just don't pay attention to what I have. Y'all get me? We all need a reminder about what we're called to practice, how we're called to practice gratitude, to stop and give thanks to God. Or maybe we're like that one leper who came back to Jesus out of gratitude. His faith in Jesus brought complete wholeness and healing. His whole life was changed. He was no longer rejected as a Samaritan, but received as a child of God. And he realized that God's love was for all. And he could live in that relationship now. Maybe the thing I want to ask is, what can we learn from this story? And we got to understand that God's power to heal and to save often works outside the boundaries that we set up for ourselves. The social boundaries. See, God's power to choose heroes sometimes works in direct opposition to the expectation of God's chosen people. We saw that when the Samaritan was the chosen person and not the Jewish person. And maybe the question is, are we open to God's work that looks different than we expect it to look like? So this week, let me challenge you to celebrate Thanksgiving in a new way. Let me challenge you to celebrate it in a way that allows you to celebrate Thanksgiving. And to ask the question, what are the things that we can give thanks back to God for? Maybe sit down and make a list. Maybe sit down and make a list of the top 5 things that you're grateful for. The problem with that is that sometimes I forget the essential things that I should be grateful for. Maybe this video will help us remind it.
Lord, I'm struggling. Show me what I have to be thankful for.
By the way, it's not a bill, it must be 15 bills. Because when the Senate Finance Committee to go to work on a tax reform, well, the first thing, without any shoes, that we raise the tip.
Lord, I'm struggling. Show me what I have to be thankful for.
Sometimes we forget, don't we, friends? I know I do. And sometimes we need that reminder of what it is that God has gifted us with, and what it is that we can give God thanks for. But it's not just about sitting down and making a list. Because more than anything, as Henry Nouwen said, it's our job to show ourselves grateful to God by giving God our whole life. By giving God all of ourself. Presenting God all of ourself as an offering back to God. That's what Thanksgiving is all about. Presenting all of ourself back to God. And then we come to living. To have faith is to live it, and to live it is to give thanks. How can we express our faith in God? By learning to give our thanks back to God. There's an article that says that grateful people are actually healthier people because gratitude is a stress reducer and allows us to be more hopeful. Imagine that. Expressing gratitude allows us to be healthier and more hopeful. Our basic Christian response back to God is gratitude for everything that God has given us. But as I've already said, sometimes I just forget. My struggle is I'm just not good at giving thanks back to God. I don't see the blessings that God has given me at times. Even though God has given me everything that I need. So maybe you struggle with giving thanks as well. So maybe here's some things that you can do this week. You can journal about the things that you're grateful for. Maybe write a letter back to God and thanking God for what you have been given and thanking God for being by your side. Just write down some thoughts on paper. And I love the thought of writing it down because you can go back and read them later. It's very easy to be able to do that. If you struggle with giving thanks, some people have said, well, I'm about to lose my home, or I don't have the necessary food that I need. It's true. It's a mentality sometimes to give thanks, isn't it? We have to work a little bit harder to look for the blessings that God has given us. Go out and enjoy a sunrise or a sunset. Be reminded of what God has given us every day. Don't put the emphasis on what God hasn't given us. Put the emphasis on what God has given us. And make plans for doing something that you've been putting off. Maybe a concert you've been wanting to see, or a movie that you've been wanting to go to. If you're struggling with giving thanks, go ahead and do the things that you've been putting off doing and allowing that to just fill your heart with thanksgiving. Friends, I don't know what your Thanksgiving is going to look like, but I pray it is a day that is not just filled with family and turkey and football, but is filled with a piece of gratitude, a piece of giving thanks back to God for what you've been given, and a piece of offering yourself back into God's hands. Would you pray with me, please? God, we do place our lives back into your hands, knowing that you are the one who loves us, who created us, who wants to have fellowship with us. We trust that you are the one that will go before us, be within us, and walk beside of us this week and every week. You are our Savior. You are our Comforter. You are our guide. And it is you that we depend on. We give you thanks for this day and every day. In the